Okay, and our apron is complete. Thanks for watching. Where Wendy Travels, Where Wendy Creates. Apron's done your way. Okay, and welcome to Where Wendy Travels, Where Wendy Creates. Today we are making girls' aprons. And once you have your yard of fabric, you put it up, fold it in half on the table. If we were actually going to cut this today, we'd throw this on the ironing board because you do not want any wrinkles or any seams, any bulkage. You want as close to exact measurements as you can. So you are putting your fabric selvage to selvage and making sure that it goes selvage to selvage all the way, and you are flat. And you're going to, again, ironing takes the guesswork out of this. And then once it is ironed, we fold that piece in half, and we make sure that those edges, the long way, as you can see here, are going to go directly in half. And then we take our apron pattern, which the apron pattern is exactly in half, and we put it at the fold. And again, like I said, it does take up the full length of that fabric. So we're going to get 2 of these sides out of it, and then we're going to cut the armhole. So when we do this, we are going to go ahead and take our weights, and we are going to weight down our cardboard. These weights are great not only for building muscles, but also for our patterns. And then we're going to take our marker or our pen, and we're going to draw on the side or simply use our rotary, and we're going to cut it. And again, this is 28 inches long. And then we are going to cut out our neck. And then we are going to grab our alternating color fabric and do the same for that. All right, and be right back. Hello, and welcome to Where Wendy Travels, Where Wendy Creates. Today we are making girls' aprons, and we have cut out from our pattern 2 different kind of fabrics. This is for girls, and we're looking at the measurement of 22. Whoopsie. So it's 11 by 28 for our pattern, and we put it on our fabric, fold it in half, and then go ahead and trim out the arm. And now that we have the 2 pieces put together, you can see that we have them face to face. And we're going to go ahead and put some needles in there and begin. So let's go ahead and throw some needles in there. Pins to keep it straight. And we're going to put a couple right at the arm and on the sides. We'll probably put maybe I'll do 2 in the top, 1 in the center, 2 in the bottom. So 5 or so pins on each side. And then on the bottom, we're going to put pins as well. And we're going to hold this while we're sewing with the pins because it is such a large piece. I don't want things to move around on us. We're going to put them both up and down as well as lateral. So we have the pins vertical and lateral. And we're going to leave this approximate 4 inches open so that we can turn the apron once it is complete. And before we sew it, we're going to go ahead and do our ties for around our midsection and around our neck. And that way we can seal them inside of the apron, so when we turn it right side out, it is all ready to go. Okay, and because of the sides and the fabric, we can get 2 aprons out of each yard of fabric, but we have to go and use the selvage. Usually I'm going to tell you to cut the selvage out, not to use it. But in the case of these aprons, we are going to go ahead and use the selvage so we get the true size. And it's not going to be in a quilt. It's not going to distort our design because we're making an apron. And that'll actually make it a little stronger on that side with the 2 selvages. So we are good to go on that. And we're putting 2 pins up close to the corner on both of the top corners so that we have no slippage as we sew it. And once we get these pins in again, we're going to make our ties, and those are simply going to be tubes. And we will be right back very soon to show you how we make those tubes. Okay, and now we're coming back to our fabric and our cutting board, and we're going to cut some 2.5-inch strips to then sew in half and make tubes for our straps. And you're going to take your fabric, fold it directly in half, selvage to selvage, and then pull your fold back over to have it lined up with the edge. And we're going to go ahead and cut 3 2.5-inch strips to then sew right sides together and make our tubes for our apron. Okay, and we have brought our 2.5-inch strips that we have cut for our apron straps over to the ironing board. And not only did we iron them flat, but we ironed right sides together, folded it in half. So it's going to be very, very easy to sew down this side. And then we'll use our large safety pin, we'll demonstrate, to turn it right side out and then sew to make our straps. All right. Okay, so now we're at the sewing machine and we have our 2.5-inch strip of fabric that we're going to use for our cords on our aprons. And we have folded it in half, ironed it in half, and now we're going by with the sewing machine. And I've got Sylvia at the sewing machine.
And this is a 1/4-inch foot.
Okay, so we're using our 1/4-inch foot.
Here.
And we have matching thread in both the thread and the bobbin. And we're just using our 1/4-inch foot and sewing this right up. And this is a 2.5-inch strip that we have cut width of fabric. So the length is width of fabric. And we're starting out with sewing it after we have folded it right sides together and ironed it, so we know we're getting it straight on that 1/4 inch. And coming up to the end, and we're going to turn this right side out in just a little bit, and we'll walk you through that process. So the whole point of this is to make a tube, turn it right side out.
You saw me back stitch right here?
Yes.
This is the end I'm going to pull through.
Okay.
So what I'm doing is a back stitch to secure that, but I'm going to cut it at an angle here.
Okay.
So there's less bulk at the first turn to go in.
No drag to pull it back through.
Correct.
The tube to turn it right side out.
Correct.
Okay, very good.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Okay, so we have grabbed a safety pin. And Sylvia, this is a large safety pin. Is this a 1.5 inch, 2 inch safety pin?
Oh, I'm guessing it's a good 2 inch, maybe hair over.
Yeah, like a very large used-to-use diaper pen.
Just about.
Of course, you've got to be old enough to understand what that even means. But it is a safety pin. And hold on. I see you double hooking it through the end of the fabric. And we've left the selvage on for the strength on that end.
That is correct.
Okay, and then now I want to watch how you do this.
All right, I pull it back down to the larger end.
Okay.
Just for the turning process.
Okay.
So open it up a little bit.
And we're sticking that end in the center.
Right.
And I see you've pushed it down.
Right, and you've got a little bit more to hold on to. And with the cap part of the pin, it gives like a little, so when you pull the fabric back, you got something good to tug on.
Oh my goodness, look how easy that's going. Okay, so you kind of gather it up and then push it over.
That's correct.
Okay, and we're going to do this for the whole tube. Want to watch it a little bit more. Okay, and we'll come back for the ends. That is going fairly easy. Okay, love it. Okay, and we're back about 30 seconds later. So we are still pushing that through that tube and pulling it up with our hands. And I am loving how easy this is. Okay, safety pin it is. Oh, look at that. Oh, and Sylvia, if I know you, I am betting our next step is back to the ironing board.
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay, so we have pulled that tube all the way through. And let me see that other end with the safety pin on it one more time.
Okay. There we go.
Okay, and then we just undo it.
Undo our safety pin.
And plop that out with our fingernails. And then off to the iron we go.
Off to the ironing board.
Okay, here we go. Okay, so now we've got the tube on the ironing board. And then we're going to stick our finger in it. Press that seam down. And then we're going to put that seam to one side. And then we're going to iron that tube straight.
Okay. Okay, what I do is I take it with your seam here.
Okay.
And I press it with my fingernail. You can use the pad of your finger. I like to use the fingernail.
Okay.
And what this does is it creases the seam one direction. Now you can take it close to that seam and do another little press and it stays put. Now look down here. See if I don't do that and I try to do that. It's got little excess fabrics in there. You have to pull and tug.
Okay.
So first, put your fingernail on it, flatten it out some. Then you get a hold of it right close to where the seam is. And let's go down here to where I did it before. We want to do it in between.
And this is why we use the 2.5-inch strips, because you're losing half an inch when you sew it. And that's a tiny tube to then work with, iron out, and sew on the sides to make it a professional looking strap.
That's right. If you want to do it any smaller than this, you need to get you a bias tape machine. And make you some bias tape, which actually, that you just run your fabric through.
Okay.
You attach it to the your fabric to it, and then pull it through, and it sort of folds it over, and then you run it through your machine.
Very nice. Okay.
Okay, we got enough of this done. We can start pressing it some.
Yeah, let me see that press.
Okay, so right here, we make sure we start out proper.
Okay.
Put the iron down. The iron is turned on. Just had to check.
Yeah.
And I have a little bit of steam on mine.
Okay, very nice.
I just like to use steam. I think it presses it faster.
Okay, beautiful.
And make sure that seam is exactly on the edge. And the reason we want it on the edge is because we're going to do a little top stitching on both sides.
Okay.
And if it's right at the edge, actually the top stitching will catch the seam allowance on the inside. It just makes one more secure part of the tie, because it's going to get a lot of use being tied and untied
That makes sense.
Especially on an apron.
Okay.
And you just keep going until we get the whole thing done. I don't believe I did my press finger scratching all down here.
Now, most of us don't use aprons in the kitchen anymore. However, it seems like aprons have gone so far by the wayside that we've been getting requests for both aprons as well as how to make the aprons. So I'm very excited to be creating this video today with you. It seems like the Girl Scouts are learning how to cook, and their instructors and mothers have wanted aprons, and it also sounds like you have some lady friends that also were requesting aprons and bibs, and so this is pretty exciting to be putting these together today.
And there you go. You see, get a close up so you can see the seam right on the edge here.
Okay, perfect, beautiful.
Now we take it to the machine. We just go in less than 1/4 inch, about 1/8, and just sew along one side, get it done, sew along the other side. Then this is ready to get work putting it in your apron.
Okay, and before we do that, we're going to turn off and unplug our iron. Okay, so we've got our strips ironed, and we're back at the sewing machine. Oop, I got a little bit of a glare. Let me see if I can get rid of that. Okay, and Sylvia, you said we're not going to do 1/4 inch on the straps, but we still want to sew down each side.
Correct. This would be your 1/4 inch because the distance between where your needle goes down and the outer edge is 1/4 inch.
Okay.
This is 1/8 of an inch right here.
Okay.
That's why the 1/4 inch foot is always handy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it out and roughly do 1/8 of an inch.
Okay, so we want a real thin line right down the side. That's going to lock in our stitching, and it's going to make it sturdier because we're doing both sides.
That is correct.
Excellent. And I see you're holding your thread to get started.
That's
Never
right.
easy to start on the very end of such a tiny piece.
And when you have arthritis in a finger, it's hard to pull it.
Ooh. Okay, real slow couple of, oh, that was quick. Okay, and we just sew down the whole length, and I'm going to try and get a close up here. Sorry about my fingers. Oh my goodness, really 1/4 inch.
No, 1/8 inch.
1/8 inch, 1/8 inch. Really an 1/8 inch because we're inside of that 1/4 inch whole side there. Very nice. Okay, and going down the other edge.
Okay, I've sewed in this direction, and instead of turning at the bottom and coming back this way, sometimes some fabrics will give you a little bit of a twist. I like to go back to the other side and sew in the same direction.
Okay.
That way your fabric stays flatter.
And we're just doing that 1/8 inch.
That's correct, all the way.
Okay, so we have sewn down both sides, and that is looking absolutely beautiful. And tell me again, Sylvia, we are using this for both the necktie as well as identical for each side of the apron to go ahead and tie. And of course, we like it long, so you can either bow tie it in the back, easily untying it and tying it, or bring it around front and tying it as well, correct?
That is correct. Now, for going around the waist area, the tie for that, we use the whole width of fabric, which is roughly 40 to 42 inches.
Okay.
But we surely don't need that much for the neck. So we take one of the pieces that's the 40 to 42, fold it in half, find our half spot here, and we'd take our big scissors and just cut it. I have small ones handy, so let's see how the small ones do.
Okay.
There you go. And then
that's going to be used for our neck.
That's correct. And when you go to sew it in on the neck, you've got the one end with the salvages, which will never fray. You can turn that under and hem it or leave it just like it is. But the cut in would fray. So you want to make sure that is within the apron. So it's sewed and into the apron part itself.
And you're going to show us how to do that now.
Yes, I will.
Okay. Okay, so we are back at the cutting board, and we're laying out our apron with our ties already sewn on both sides. So, Sylvia, it looks like we have this, just to review, pinned, and we have right sides together. So we're ready to sew that, but you said we affix the ties now. So show me what we're doing.
Okay, first I've taken one of the long lengths of fabric, cut it in half, and that'll be for our neck. Okay, we showed you how you pin up here. Now we're going to take a couple of these out just for placement of the neckties.
And these are the one length that we have cut in half.
That is correct. We take the end that we've cut in half, and we want to place it up slightly in, because you know we'll do a 1/4 inch seam, so we want to be at least another 1/4 from that.
Okay.
With it sticking up just a little bit so you know where you've placed it. Just put one pin for right now there.
Okay.
You take the other one, cut side, and let's see what we got down there. So this one we will put in, remember the 1/4, and go in about another 1/4, and then put it up close to a 1/4.
Okay.
Just put this in. Now these, oh my goodness, what are we going to do with those? Well, here's what we do. We just take them and fold them up, put them inside toward the center, so it does not get in our stitching area.
Okay.
Take the other one, just fold it up a little bit, place it inside, and remember to keep these straight down, but then fold them in away from the edge.
Okay.
So that they do not get in there. Bring this back up, take that one pin out right here, stick it back in.
Okay.
Use a fabric corner pin.
Okay.
Go over to this side. Take it, this one out, pin it through the fabric. One in the center to hold it straight, and another one on the edge.
Okay.
And of course, you remember when you sew, you never run over the pins.
Okay.
All right. For the sides, we want to hook them roughly the same distance apart. So we remove a couple pins here, open it up, place this, and with your seam line where you've seamed it together, make sure that's on the bottom. Put it like a 1/4 in. You go down roughly a 1/4, and then have another 1/4 down.
Okay.
Put, if I get a hold of this, put a pin in just to secure it.
And I'm trying to see, is that a 1/4 inch outside of the fabric?
Roughly.
It looks really thin on that for me. So it's just a rough figure.
It's a rough figure. It's a shy 1/4.
Okay.
And these on the neck were a little bit more because they were raw edges. Remember, this is your salvage edge, and it's already fully hemmed.
Okay.
Because of the salvage is so tight.
Okay, very good.
So it doesn't have to be the full 1/4 there.
Okay.
And just like for the neck, we want to fold this back and forth and put it on the inside. And as we pick this corner up, we open, we slide it in. Make sure that this goes straight, and it can have a little fold down if needed. Bring our fabric back. Meet the corners.
Okay.
Put a pin in it, in the fabric corner. Remove this pin and put it through again. Now, since this is a longer stretch,
okay,
we're going to take a couple extra pins, We can put extra pins along this stretch. But what I wanted to do is also make sure with this curvature, I do an extra pin.
Okay.
And you see, I'm turning my pins to where they're on the outside.
Okay.
I found out it's easier to yank them out as I sew that way.
Ah, very good. Okay, so it does matter just for ease.
For ease.
Of removal.
Correct.
We have those set. Okay.
Now we've got the one side and the tops. We need to do the other side.
Okay.
The same thing. We'll remove a couple pins. We'll fold this up. Remember the seamed side, we want it on the lower part. In here, sewing line, then roughly a quarter beyond, and sticking out roughly a quarter. Okay. There we got that part. We'll take this, just put some little folds in it. All that's doing is to make it easier to hide it all.
Keep it out of our way.
Keep it out of the way. And put this in, put it toward the belly part of the apron.
Okay.
Come back here, make sure this is straight in. We want our side pinned. I'll need a couple more pins here. Thank you. We want the armhole to have a couple more, because I did take out the one there too. And down below this, we want another pin. And like I said, you can add more pins around the sides. Now, the reason we've got our straps on the inside is because we want them on the outside once we're all finished.
Okay. And you did mention that these are the armholes, but actually this tie is closer to the waist area. This goes up on our chest. This ties around our neck. So this is really going up into the side of our body. It's not necessary to have the apron because it's not a full shirt.
It's not a armhole, so to speak. It's just a curvature so the apron can go around the waistline better.
Very
and
good.
Up on the chest a little higher.
Okay.
Now, look down toward the bottom where this pin is. We're going to start sewing. We're going to make sure we got a few more pins. We'll sew all the way around and stop here. Start here, stop here. That's what this means.
So we can turn it right side out.
When we're all done, our pins are out of it. We'll put our hand in here, and all we have to do is reach up, grab a hold of these ties, and pull the ties through. And as we pull the ties through, it's going to pull the top and the sides down, and you're going to be turning it inside out. And all you have to do is just make sure you've got it all flat afterwards.
Okay, can't wait.
You'll press it, top stitch it, sew up this little area, and you're done.
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to that process. Okay, so we are back with the sewing machine, and remember how this needle to this needle, we were going to have the opening to turn our apron. So we are going to start on this side right here, and we're going to go in a comfortable 1/4 inch all the way around until we get to this other side, and then we'll stop before we come up to this pin. And again, we do not want to sew over any of our pins, so we'll be taking them out as we go and not worrying about breaking those pins because we'll be removing them. Okay, so we are sewing. We're going to give it a comfortable 1/4 inch sew. We're going to remove those needles before we come up on them and put those in our pin cushion and keep right on going. And again, we're sewing around the edge of our apron. Removing those needles as we come to it. Now, because we did not properly measure and cut our apron, it is slightly off. So we want to make sure we're a 1/4 inch in from the shortest fabric. Again, if you have measured and cut properly, you should not have any difference. But when I cut the fabric, I cut a 1/4 inch out from the pattern line, whereas Sylvia cuts right on the pattern line. So this mistake is mine, so do forgive me. And we are going to come right up to the corner. We are going to back stitch that corner. And then we are going to come right back up to the corner. We are going to needle down, pick up our foot. We are going to pivot, and we're going to place that needle down again. And we are going to continue sewing, realizing again our fabric is just slightly off from the end. So we want to make sure that we're capturing that entire 2 pieces with a good 1/4 inch seam on that side. And coming up to a needle, we're going to remove that needle, pull it back before we get to it. Put that in our pin cushion and keep on continuing. It's just a beautiful hum when we get it going nice. Sorry about the camera movement there for us. And we're going to keep going all the way around our entire apron, removing those pins as we come up to them before we run over them. And we're coming up to the corner with our seam in there. So when I pulled it back, it looked wrong. There we go. We're all good. And we're going to keep going. Okay, and we've got our step up there. I'm going to go ahead and pull out the needle, and I'm going to double stitch right on top of that. And at the corner with our needle down, we will pick up our foot, we'll pivot. We've got that strap securely sewn down in there again, a good 1/4 inch out. And then we're going to go around our next angle, foot down. We're going to back stitch right at those corners. And we're going to stitch right across, removing our needles as we come up to them. Okay. And adjusting your fabric as you go so it doesn't pull or torque. Coming up on the other side with our other handle. We're going to pull that needle out. Go very carefully, securing those 2 fabrics down. I like to lock stitch on every corner. It may not be necessary, but I prefer it. And I'm going to have needle down, pick up, pivot the fabric. We're going to put that foot straight back down. The needle stays down. And we're going to come up onto that, sorry about the blurriness, and needle down. And we're going to back stitch a couple, securing that, needle down, pull out our pen, and we've locked that piece in. We're going to come straight across. And on the other side, I know we're going to top stitch it, but I like to go ahead and double secure that as we go. Okay, let me straighten out this fabric so we're not torquing. And just continue going around, pulling out your needles before you get there, trying to keep close to that 1/4 inch seam. Needle down. to secure. Come on back up, needle down, pull out that needle, continue across. I'm going to back stitch again. Needle out of my corner. So again, going real slow around those sides. And where we secure in and needle down, we're going to pick up that foot, pivot, needle down, and makes our next corner. Adjust our fabric so we're not having any weight pulling us down, and we're going to keep going. Again, we have rounded that last corner, and we're coming back in to the final part, removing our needles as we come, and we're coming right up to our beginning spot there. So we're going to stop sewing and leave that open spot. So right here, we're going to go ahead and lock stitch. And we're going to pull it up, cut our thread, pull our needles, and then we're going to turn our apron right side out. And then we'll top stitch. Okay, so we have gone ahead and sewn it, left the bottom open for turning, but before we turn it, we want to use the pinking shears, or you can use your scissors just to give a little cut here to where the fabric has more give and flexibility, so you don't have any puckering when you turn the fabric. Okay, so we've used the pinking shears on this side, and then if you don't have the pinking shears at home, let's go ahead and do the other curvature and show you what we mean by just giving a little cut. If you don't have the pinking shears, how you're going to just give it a slight little cut to where the fabric gives and doesn't pucker when you turn it. And then on our corners, we're going to go ahead in a moment after we get this curve done. And again, it's only necessary to do on the curves because it's only at the curves where you'll have a pucker if we don't do that. Now we're going to show you here on the other side. So where you see we've got the, oopsie, if I can hold the camera right, the jagged little edge where it's cut in, and that just allows that flexibility with the fabric. And now we're going to go ahead and pick up the regular scissors again, and we're going to nip the corners just so again when you tuck and turn, they don't have any bulk in those corners, and we can get a sharper, more professional corner. Okay, and doing that last corner. Okay, so now we're going to grab it, find our little hole where we had it to turn. Go ahead and stick your hand inside of there. Find all 4 of your straps, the 2 for the neck, the 1 for each of the body piece as we go along here. And then we're going to pull them out, and that's going to help us turn our apron right side out to where we can see an almost finished project. And we still have to sew around or top sew around the edges just for that final reinforcement, that final commercial look. And again, we're doing this in a fun girls army color apron, so that when we have some young bakers, camouflage look, when we have some young bakers, they are feeling very good and fashionable and get to pick their style. Okay, just poking out these corners here and getting them to come out. One more corner, two more corners. All right, real nice around that. And the other, I believe this is neck piece. And I didn't mention, but yes, we are going to now iron before we do that top stitching. So we're going to finger press around all the seams. And we are starting to look more like an apron. All right. And now we're going to pull out this whiteboard and iron it real quick, and we'll be back at the sewing machine. Okay, and as we're ironing this, we folded in the pieces of the inside flap that was open, and that way we iron them. They're going to lay flat. We're going to be doing a top stitch that seals them up. But again, we're doing a little quick finger press, and then with a hot steam iron, we're going over our edges, pulling them out as we go. Sometimes you can use a, forgetting what it's called. Sometimes I use a needle. You can also use a stiletto to help pull that out and finger press to push it out. And we're just finishing ironing up the top, and then we go back to that top stitch. Now, please, 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 just like we talked about before, in your sewing machine, make sure you have the correct bobbin color, the correct top thread, so that you have a perfect finalized piece. And see you at the sewing machine. Okay, so we're back at the sewing machine, and since we have the pink thread in, we're going to start on the little pink spot right at the bottom, sealing up the opening that we had left so we could turn our apron right side out. And we're just going to zip carefully all the way around, about 1/4 of an inch out. You can do a scant 1/4 inch. Just make sure you have just over an 8-inch seam. Again, if we're as accurate as possible around the outside, it just makes it look that much more professional. And this is a no pocket child size apron. Again, we're talking about probably a teenager apron, or young teenager size apron. Definitely big enough for us as an adult, but made for a teenager style, and a little bit smaller than the normal adult apron. We've made it effortlessly around the first corner, and we're going up the first side, and we're around our second corner, our first strap. We're going up what I called the chest piece, or around the first arm. And we're around one of our top corners, needle down, pivot, and foot down again, and over that strap, and across the top. And we're coming up on our second to the last corner, and we're putting needle down, lift the foot, pivot, straighten the fabric, foot down, go over that last strap, and we're down that last side before we come up to the bottom again.
And you comment.
And a couple of back stitches to seal it off. Okay, now it is not necessary, but I prefer it to go ahead and do a second stitch around the entire outside. But this stitch we're going to make real close to the edge. And if we go slow, and this is perfect, you cannot tell that this is a homemade apron. It does look professional. So we are starting our second stitch line all the way across, all the way around the entire apron again. And if you can see that, a beautiful second row, and that's what it's going to look like all the way around. And around the corner, since we're right on the edge, you can use a stiletto. Just remember, do not let that stiletto, if you use one, get underneath that needle. And again, you're not pulling, you're not pushing, you're guiding to stay right on that edge all the way around. Where we started. We're going to backstitch and lock that in, and we are all set. Okay, and our apron is complete. We have the straps that we've put around on each of the sides, looking really nice. The double stitching everywhere that we've done it, and we've done it in pink, so it blends in so beautifully. And of course, up at the top, the corners, absolutely gorgeous. And we are good to go. Our apron is complete. Congratulations. Woohoo! Thanks for watching. Where Wendy Travels, Where Wendy Creates. Aprons done your way.